It's that time of year again. Time to make deodorant. Hey, my name is Bethany. This is Make Joy, and welcome to Make With Me. Okay, this is the first Make With Me video I've done in a real long time. I'm really excited because it is homemade deodorant, and I actually have wanted to do this video for a long time, but the thing is, this deodorant is so awesome and lasts such a long time that once I had made it a year ago, I didn't need it again for another year. And so here I am making my second batch ever. This deodorant is so super easy. It only has, I want to say, like, I'm putting 4 ingredients in it today, and you actually only need 3 of those. So I have coconut oil, which has made my hands super oily. Great. We have beeswax, we have cornstarch, baking soda, and tea tree oil. So I guess it's 5 ingredients, but you only have to have 4 because you don't actually need the beeswax. But the reason the beeswax is really great is because, as you can see, this coconut oil, like, it's pretty warm in my kitchen right now. It's completely liquid. And so if you have deodorant that you've made from this stuff, but it's mostly based off of coconut oil, then it's gonna get super duper soupy and kind of yuck, and especially in the summer, it's just gonna become liquid. But if you add some beeswax, it helps thicken it up and make it a little bit better. So we're gonna get going. This is a great recipe to make at the same time as the homemade lotion that I also have a video explaining. I'm actually doing that right now, which is why you can see that I have multiple jars for those things to go in. Because it uses so many of the same ingredients and kind of the same process. So the first part is you have a double boiler situation, which I've got set up right here. And in that double boiler, you're gonna put 1 tablespoon of wax and 3 tablespoons of coconut oil. 1, 2, and 3. All right, and you're gonna let that go until the wax has completely melted into the oil. You might need to stir it occasionally. All you need is just a little easy spoon. All right. So while that's all going and melting, you can go ahead and measure out your next 2 ingredients. So, like I said, you need baking soda and cornstarch. I think some people also use arrowroot powder instead of cornstarch when they're doing homemade deodorants because of concerns about genetic modification and stuff like that. Either way, I find this works really well. I really like, kind of like I said with the lotion, I just really like knowing what's in my products. And especially, I feel like deodorants is one of those things that gets a lot of clamor for all the bad things that can be in it, and how much they can affect you. All right, so my wax is melted. Yeah, so I just like making my own deodorant. I mean, you can buy natural deodorants, but in my experience, Tums, they just don't work very well. So this deodorant, I mean, it's still not going to pack the same punch that, like, a conventional deodorant's going to pack, and it's not an antiperspirant at all, so you're still going to sweat. But I can definitely tell the difference days that, like, say if I go to the gym and I don't put on deodorant first, it's very obvious. So that's just a 1/4 cup of baking soda and a 1/4 cup of arrowroot powder, or not arrowroot powder, cornstarch, that's what I have here. So, and you just mix it in with a spoon. So it's real easy. You don't have to blend it or do anything crazy. You just mix in the oil and wax with the powders. Great, and it'll thicken up into a liquidy kind of paste. Once you do that, this is another ingredient that you really do want to have, and that's tea tree oil. And the reason is that tea tree oil has antibacterial properties, and so both to keep the deodorant from, like, getting gross and moldy in the jar, but also to help your armpits smell nice and fresh, this is an essential ingredient. So we get 5 drops of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then here's another optional ingredient, and that is just another essential oil for for general smell purposes. Yeah, so I'm gonna put in 5 drops of peppermint oil because I like when it smells nice and minty. So yeah, I've been super happy with this deodorant. Like I said, I can definitely tell the difference both in like how sweaty I feel and how smelly I feel when I wear it or if I don't. And like I said, it lasted, like this amount lasted me a whole year. So that seems like a pretty good deal to me. Like if you think about how much you're forking out for conventional deodorants, yeah, it's a pretty good deal. I will have to say, like, I'm not the world's sweatiest or smelliest person, like especially in the winter. I can even get away with just not wearing deodorant at all. So if you are someone who usually is going for that like clinical strength, super uber deodorant, this might not be the solution for you. But I also think for a lot of us, like, there's obviously a certain amount of like compromise when you decide to go the totally natural route. There's a reason people started using those unnatural conventional products in the first place, and that's because they worked to do a specific thing. So you might like have to get used to it a little bit. All right, so while it's still pretty soupy and cold, you definitely don't want to let this sit because the beeswax will start to harden up a little bit as it cools. You just want to put it in whatever container you're going to put it in. So last year when I made this, I actually put it in, I had an empty like leftover deodorant tube, just like normal Degree brand deodorant tube like you get at the store. And so I went ahead and put it in there and loaded it in there because I was like, oh, perfect, it'll be just like conventional deodorant, goes on and I won't have to like get my fingers slimy and it'll be great. Except that I still ended up using my fingers most mornings to rub the deodorant in. And also, especially like if the tube ever got kind of warm, like this mixture, even with the beeswax, will still get a little bit melty and soft sometimes. And so I would end up with like just this kind of ooey gooey mess in my deodorant tube. And then especially when I got down to the bottom of the deodorant tube, it was really messy and really hard to like clean out the little corners of what was left. And so I was just really unhappy with that experience. So instead, this year I'm using this nice glass jar that we got last week from some sour cream, I think. And I boiled this first to make sure there was no germs inside of it. And yeah, that's where I'm gonna stick my deodorant. I think, oh, it smells so nice. It smells like tea tree oil and peppermint. So I'm just gonna leave the lid off until it cools, but there you go. There's my nice jar of deodorant. I think this is gonna be nicer for application than the tube, just because it's like easy to like scoop out a little bit with my finger, and you really only need of this like, just a tiny, tiny bit on your finger is enough to cover your armpits because it spreads out really well from the coconut oil, and when your finger gets it warm, it like starts to spread out for you. But also with this, it's like, I've just found this is the same kind of jar I use for my hand lotion that I make, and it's just a really nice, like, wide mouth jar so you can get your hand inside of it and like scoop out the corners as you get towards the bottom, but still not too huge, so you don't like need a ton of product in there. So, I think that's it. That's how you make it. I'll try to put the recipe down in the description below. I got this recipe from a really cool blog called Becoming Peculiar, I think is what it's called, and so I will also put a link to that in the description, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I really love this. It's cheap to make and easy to make and can last forever, so I really do recommend you try it if you're looking for a more natural deodorant source. Okay, that's all. Let me know what other stuff you're wondering about. I'm hoping to do a few more natural home product videos in the coming weeks, and hopefully just make more videos period in the coming weeks and not like the last 6 months. But in any case, thanks for watching.